you got to realize that whatever you're doing, you're competing with somebody. What is it that gives you an advantage over your competition? Whatever you're good at, try to be great at it. And if you're great at it, good things will happen.
Maverick Podcast.
I'm far from average. That's why I had to come sit down and chop it up with DJ Maverick. They know my name from coast to coast and even in Dallas. I use my talent when I'm faced with a challenge. Gratitude strength is my magnet. Close your eyes and imagine. If you can see it in your mind, then you can have it.
Maverick Podcast.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us. This is the Maverick Podcast. I'm your host, DJ Maverick. Today, we have another rock star in the building. Wow. We have the one and only Brett Fieldcamp. Welcome to the pod.
Hello. I'm a long time watcher, long time listener.
That's really cool. Appreciate that. I've been looking forward to that. I feel like we've already kind of started the pod before we even started.
Yeah, that happens with I launch into it immediately when I see somebody. It's hard to turn off. Mm-hmm. You know, I spend so much of my day asking questions and talking and getting the conversation rolling and everything. It's impossible to turn off. I do it until I pass out every night. So
definitely. So I always like to kick it off for the 1% of the people out there that don't know who you are. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
There's a lot more than 1% that don't know me. I am a radio host of my own. I have On the Scene weekly on KGOU. It's giving you a look behind the curtains of Oklahoma's arts, culture, and entertainment worlds.
Yep.
I am also a musician. I make music under the name Meteorology. I've been, in and out of some bands for like 20 years. I've been in the music scene, but now I'm doing a thing, Meteorology, that's entirely solo. And I am a longtime freelance journalist that this month bought Oklahoma City Free Press after being their arts and entertainment editor for a little while. So in addition to everything else, I'm now learning how to manage a website and learning how to be an editor-in-chief, which is an entirely different skill set than just being an editor.
Right.
So yeah, I'm pretty busy. I keep myself pretty busy.
Yeah. So talk about wearing multiple hats. If I put you on the spot,
oh man,
where does Brett feel more at home? Musician, interviewer, owner, entrepreneur, like you tell me, journalist. There's so many things.
Okay, owner, entrepreneur is at the very, very, very bottom.
Yeah.
I have no idea how to do any of that yet. I'm entirely in the deep end, and I like being in the deep end, right? Mm-hmm. I function really well under pressure, and I just naturally don't sleep much anyway.
Yeah.
But in terms of like, where do I feel more comfortable between music, between, writing or interviewing or being a community spokesman or something? Mm-hmm. I have this tendency to kind of think that they're all generally the same thing, right?
I can see that.
So my whole kind of spiel that I always go into is that my love is language.
Okay.
So no matter what it is, I love language. I love playing with words. I love playing with meaning and expression. And so no matter what I'm doing, it's the same thing, because music is language. It's, I have a terrible, tenuous, barely a grasp on the Spanish language, but I'm very well versed in English. And then the second language that I speak is music.
Cool.
So to me, it's primarily that. It's all just kind of expression and communication. And then having been a part of the music world for the last like 20 years, just kind of developed my connections into the arts and entertainment scene so much.
On the way over to the podcast, I was checking out Meteorology. I was trying to see, okay, what are the influences here? I don't know if I could nail it down. There was like so many different like rhythms, different sounds, even like I would say even different time frames of musical instruments. Oh, yeah. How would you describe Meteorology and what you do with that?
The stuff that's up that you would have been listening to, which we're just very nearly coming up on a year since my first full debut album as Meteorology has been out. It's called Every Last Monday. That is all long form experimental instrumental.
Okay.
In my mind, it's what's usually called post-rock, which is a lot of my favorite stuff. There's bands Godspeed You Black Emperor, Explosions in the Sky. That's a lot of my influence. But that's also just what's been released so far. So on the way over here, I was actually listening to what I hope are the final mixes of what's going to be my next release.
Yeah.
Which is shorter songs, very much songs. They've got vocals. A lot of people that only know me from Meteorology don't realize that I'm also a singer. But the stuff that's out there is very experimental, and it is a lot of polyrhythms. It's lots and lots and lots of guitar. That is just one major element of what Meteorology is. It's literally just me by myself triggering and playing everything live. Those tracks that you were listening to were all recorded live, basically in a single take.
No way.
Yeah. For those particular tracks, and that's kind of a whole other story of how that album even really happened. But those were really recorded just to be demos. Okay. So those are all just live takes.
Wow.
But that's just one element of what I'm experimenting with is Meteorology. And I keep even saying, like, if I wanted to put a live band together and make a country album and call it Meteorology, I could, and I might. It's not out of the question.
That's very cool. Yeah, because I was trying to nail it down, and then sometimes I would hear like a riff or like a particular drum sound, and I would say, well, that almost kind of sounds like The Cure or something. And I don't know if you're a big Cure guy or
you
not.
are not right.
but I love The Cure, so when I would hear that, I'd be like, maybe that's an influence, but I could never nail it down. I just
The Cure is probably an influence in every single step that I take every single day of my life.
Okay, well, that's great. I definitely heard that. I was like, I don't know if he's going to take it as a compliment or not. But
1,000%.
Okay.
Guitar tone sounds in particular kinds of drive and distortion and chorus and everything. There's a lot of the time that I'm just kind of chasing The Cure. But then, like I said, lots of Godspeed, explosions. Radiohead is in everything that I do. My favorite band on earth is an Icelandic band called Sigaros.
Okay.
They are my favorite band ever.
Very cool.
So anything that I do has a lot of that. And then just a lot of just turning knobs or overlaying loops or something, and literally just seeing where it goes. So.
Yeah, definitely. Some of those intros were just like sounds.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not sure what it is, but it's kind of a vibe. It's kind of cool.
Yeah. The final track on that album is 27 minutes long. It's called Competitive Martyrdom, which has a whole kind of story behind that concept itself. But that track, it's loads and loads of texture, and then it kind of turns into a lot of it's based real heavily off the Blade Runner score. But that entire track, 27 minutes, every single thing that you hear is a single guitar. It's just me in a live take playing one single guitar with pedals.
It's amazing.
And that just literally came out of a whole bunch of experimentation with just rerouting pedals and turning stuff on and seeing what happened and seeing what would happen if I split the signal here and looped it here.
Okay.
And
so you're like an analog guy, and you're like plugging stuff in, actual different pedals and stuff. Not like a plug-in guy. You're just like
no. I downloaded my first ever beat sample pack about a month ago.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Just to see, because I was like, hey, this is something I've never tried.
See what
before.
this hype is.
Yeah. So So other than that, no, everything that I do is analog, and that allows me to perform everything live.
True.
So my live show now is Meteorology, is this weird kind of high wire act.
Yeah.
Where I'm trying to loop everything in real time. I have a pedal board that my brother actually helped me build. That's made out of 4 Yamaha electronic kick drum triggers.
Okay.
That are run into the back of a Roland sampling pad that are loaded up with like bass notes and synth pads, so that I can keep everything really kind of organic. I don't like just playing to backing tracks. It feels like you're locked into it. So I want to be able to play bass with my feet while I play guitar and sing.
Man.
It's like a dance routine.
And it's almost like you're like playing jazz, because you're kind of like, it lends to improvising and like doing stuff differently. Right.
That's exactly what I do. I actually, I listen to more jazz than I listen to anything else. I listen to jazz and ambient primarily at home.
Very cool.
Partially because I spend almost all of my time writing, and I can't write if there's vocals.
True. Okay. So why did you gravitate towards music? Was there a musical influence in the family, or like, why music?
My dad's love of music, and my mom actually, but I mean, like, my dad was like 24 hours a day. He had the biggest cassette tape collection you had ever seen.
Okay.
But not playing anything. He was never a musician of himself.
So when we talk about those cassette tapes,
Yeah.
what kind of bands were you listening to? You said a big collection. So what are we talking about?
Mostly 80s glam metal type stuff, Poison and Motley Crue. But my dad did genuinely, he loved almost anything. If it was rock, if it had guitars, he was into it. His favorite band on earth was Styx, which even at the time was like, he acknowledged that it was kind of cheesy, but my dad, like, he got into the theater of it, and he got into just like the bombast. And
Probably a big Kiss guy as well.
He loved some Kiss.
Okay.
He loved them. I mean, you know, in the 70s and early 80s, Kiss were actually pretty cool.
Yeah.
I didn't see them until much later, and they weren't. But no, and it really kind of came from that. We were raised on everything. We were raised on just as much Elton John as we were Guns N' Roses.
Yeah.
You know, he didn't really get into country music. He didn't really have a lot of handle on like classical or jazz or anything. But my entire childhood was rock and metal.
Yeah.
So-
We were talking even about your mom was like deep into concerts
Yeah,
and music as well.
That
right?
was all that she did. I mean, and that was like what my parents did even when they were young and dating.
Okay.
Was just always concerts.
Yeah.
All the way up through, you know, when we were born. And we were always super close with my mother's mother. So, you know, weekend night, we might just get dropped off at grandma's house to hang out, and we're going to camp out at grandma's house, and my parents are going to Dallas or Kansas City to see the Rolling Stones or something.
Yeah.
You know, and so that's just so many stories that we've been raised on now. You know, like I can still hang out with my mom, and she'll pull up YouTube, and she'll pull up, you know, old concert
That's
footage
so
from
cool.
the 70s or something.
And she's
So,
like, yeah, I saw these guys before they blew up. Or...
she's got a lot of I saw them before they blew up, and she's got a lot of I saw them at their absolute peak and heyday, and that was what it was for Queen. I think that when she saw Queen, it was maybe like right after Live Aid, maybe.
Jeez.
Still says Queen was one of the best shows ever. She still says the best concert she ever saw in her life was Brian May solo, like a year and a half after Freddie Mercury died. She said it was the most emotional and beautiful thing she's ever seen. Yeah.
So I guess music was like meant to be. It was like in the family.
Maybe, I mean, just the love of music for sure. But I actually didn't find out until like years later that my dad's mother, I guess, she had played like school band stuff. She was, I think she played French horn,
Okay.
which I also ended up just kind of playing just like on a weird lark. I didn't know there was a family history, but yeah, we never had, I mean, admittedly, we never really had creative people in our family. That wasn't really something that just really came down to our parents being just really encouraging about it. You know, my mom always wanted us to have something stable and be able to make money and be able to take care of ourselves. But, you know, every birthday, every Christmas, we wanted another musical instrument, you know? So I had a drum set by the time that I was 5, and my brother's first drum kit was mine. We shared everything. Had a bass later, had a guitar later, bought keyboards and synths and everything, and just noodled around on stuff. And so yeah, I was never any training or anything.
And then the garage bands just kind of naturally just sparked up. And
That's what happens when you grow up. So I grew up in Moore.
okay.
And yeah, when you grow up in a place like Moore, it's, you know, you're not going out to try to play in clubs automatically.
Yeah.
You're obviously not going out to try to impress cool people that, you know, producers or anything like that. You're trying to find other people that, for starters, even care.
Yeah.
Because, you know, late 90s, early 2000s, growing up in Moore, not everybody even cared about music that had a guitar in it, right? That was kind of antiquated at the time. So you're just trying to find other people that are into it, and then just kind of blow out the neighborhood in somebody's garage, you know?
But in a way that almost makes it more meaningful because you're doing it just for the love of it, right? Like you just like, you know, no real, I don't know, maybe there is an end goal, but you're just like, hey, I like music. I like playing instruments. I'm going to find like-minded individuals and we're just going to jam out.
Yeah. And that's obviously that's like the ideal, I guess. it's hard. I mean, it's not hard to get into that mentality when you're that age. I really started playing in bands. My first band was like junior high. So junior high, high school and everything. You know, you're obviously not going to, blow up and break big out of junior high and go somewhere. But, those early years, you're just kind of trying to play. It's cool just to say that you wrote a song. Mm-hmm. Later, when you kind of become an adult and have to justify it to yourself, then everything kind of changes. And that's actually where I had a long period that was a lot more kind of difficult about asking myself the questions of why I was doing it.
Mm. But I think that lends itself to being a great foundation for what you're doing now with On the Scene, because you understand the struggles, you understand the ambition, you understand everything that happens behind the scenes for every artist, right? So
absolutely. So, really kind of getting into that period, I guess, of my life, there was a really long time where I was convinced for years, and this is a story that I've actually even kind of told, a few other times. I was convinced for years that the goal had to be to transcend your community.
Yeah.
Right. Nobody wants to be a local band. Everybody wants to just be a band, a real band that's cool, and everybody knows you around the country or world. Yeah. So I was always like, well, that's the goal, right? I don't care about Oklahoma. I don't care about my hometown. I don't care about the people around here. Mm-hmm. And so for the longest time, that was kind of the mentality that I was taking into everything. And that's a bad mentality to take in. It really shouldn't be what anyone does. I was trying to kind of like play to impress the venues, just hoping that we would get asked back, and, not even necessarily to make money. I just kind of like wanted the notoriety a little bit. And it wasn't until, admittedly too long down that path that I just kind of had an epiphany. I remember the show that I was leaving. I caught a show at Blue Note, like on a lark by myself. It was like a weeknight. Nobody was available to go with me.
Yeah.
And it was this great, cool little band up out of Austin, and they had some local openers. And I just remember, like, after the show, just introducing myself and hanging out, had this great conversation, and we loved all this awesome music and everything. And I remember driving home and thinking, oh yeah, that's what it's supposed to be about. You're supposed to be doing this so that you can connect with other creative people, and so that you can share this love of music. Mm-hmm. And, that, like I say, that probably happened a little bit too late.
Yeah.
But it completely redirected all of my energy to like, no, I need to be getting out, learning about the people in the scene, meeting the people in the scene, and just helping to develop a community and helping to develop myself as part of a community.
That's interesting. So is that how the whole On the Scene developed? Just you going out, visiting different venues, meeting different artists, or how did that come about?
On the Scene basically came to me. Okay. Really. So, and we'll obviously get into this more deeply, but concurrently with all of the music, the whole time I've been coming up, I've also just been a journalist. So I spent about 15 or so years freelancing, while playing music, while holding jobs, and ended up at one point. Really, the way that it happened was I had done a story about the soundbar that the owner of the soundbar really loved. Mm. So he just invited me to, come hang out, and I'm up there all the time, just kind of chilling out.
That place is amazing, by the way.
It is the coolest place. It's just about the only bar that I go to anymore. And I love other bars. I was liquor industry for like 10 years as well. So I love all the other bars. I love all the other bartenders. But
do people just show up with like their own just vinyl record and say, hey, I just want to listen to this?
They don't. They're usually not actually that into that. I'm always trying to convince them they need to do a bring your own vinyl night. But, admittedly, dirt and artifacts and everything will actually degrade a needle, and the level of equipment that they are working with.
It's crazy.
The first night that I went up there, I was just hanging out by myself. I walked around and I priced everything like in the system that was like, not even just like everything they had for sale or whatever. I priced everything just in the system they were using, and it was about $40,000. But I had been freelancing kind of for everybody. And this is really coming out of the pandemic. I decided to really try to make a go of it with journalism.
websites, different magazines? Like, what are we talking about?
Yeah, I mean, generally the way that freelancing works with journalism these days, I'm definitely under the impression that freelancing used to be a little more just all independent, and you would kind of have something and offer it. Generally with modern freelancing, nobody really has the budget in news these days to hire a writing staff in a big newsroom.
Yeah.
So everybody kind of just brings on independent contractors, and more often than not, the outlet will pitch an idea to you and say, you know, hey, well, we kind of need somebody to cover this. Does this seem like it's up your alley? And you can absolutely pitch ideas back. But generally speaking, unless you're like one of the TV news stations or the Oklahoman to an extent, but the Oklahoman's writing staff is tiny now. People don't realize that. For the most part, it's an entirely freelance industry now. So I was kind of freelancing for everyone at the time. And when the Gazette kind of went under, the Gazette at the time was very, very, very different, had a completely different management. They decided to try to make a go at winding down the physical edition and trying to go all digital. They just basically didn't work. And I was kind of like I was one of the last writers. There was a couple other freelancers. And that was kind of like leading into the summer. And I really kind of had been counting on the money that I was hoping to make there. So I just kind of let Jay know, because I was hanging out at the sound bar, and he's like, well, hey, if you want to pick up some shifts here, you know, like I said, I was liquor industry for 10 years. So I've got a pretty good handle on that. Worked there for a while, for like 6 or 7 months or something, just kind of hanging out, working, you know, easy day shift while I was also writing stuff. And then there was just this point where Jay, the owner of the sound bar, came to me and said, hey, you ever considered maybe like something like a radio show? And I said, yeah, when I was 4 or 5 years old, I used to sit in my bedroom with a tape recorder and make a fake radio show.
I did the same thing.
That's right.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah. I used to do it all the time. I used to kick it to my favorite songs and do the whole thing. Yeah. And he said, well, what do you think about KGOU? I said, KGOU is the only radio station I've ever had programmed into my car.
Yeah.
It's my favorite station. I listened to it just deeply for 20 years or more. So there was no question for me, you know, when they were kind of asking me, you know, well, what do you want to do? Well, what do you think? I'm just going, what do you need? What you tell me to make literally any show for KGOU is just going to be a dream.
You're like, I'm game. You tell me.
No matter what it is. And so, KGOU for years and years now has had Capital Insider, which is hosted by the station manager, Dick Pryor. And it's, you know, taking you inside, Oklahoma politics and government. And so he said, well, I would love for there to be like an arts and entertainment kind of companion to the Capital Insider. And I said, done.
It's amazing.
Cool. 5 minutes on arts and entertainment. And so I gave them a sample show where I said, taking you inside the arts and entertainment. And he said, you can't say taking you inside. That's mine. And so for the first show, I'm not kidding, I was down to the wire. And the first show, I knew I couldn't say taking you inside. So I needed some kind of intro. And it became giving you a look behind the curtains of Oklahoma's arts, culture, and entertainment worlds. And that split-second decision really set the tone for the whole thing. So the whole kind of like behind the curtain element of it is really what's kind of become the guiding principle of the show.
Okay.
So
that's amazing. Yeah, man, going back to that whole thing as a kid, like recording and doing the whole radio thing, I have never met anybody else that had
really
done that until now. So
no.
That's pretty cool to be able to.
No, I mean, and you can clock it in somebody that knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
So Jay, for the people out there that don't know, besides owning the soundbar, he's also like a entertainment lawyer.
He is indeed. He's a high level successful entertainment lawyer. So he knows a thing or two.
Yeah.
And he has developed a lot of other shows and a lot of other talent and everything. So for him to even come and say, you know, hey, I feel like you really know your stuff. I feel like you've got a really good handle on the community, and I feel like you've got the voice and personality for it. The joke is, and also the face.
But the thing is like, how did that even spark? Just like you and him having conversations and talking about music, and
that's what working at the sound bar is.
Okay.
I don't know, 90% of working at Soundbar is hanging out and talking about music.
Yeah. Very cool. So what was your first segment for On the Scene?
My very first segment for On the Scene, and it actually has a whole kind of story behind it, was Jay Masty. I don't know if you know Jay Masty.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jay Masty was doing the first ever What I Do Summer Showdown. And it was really, I mean, I know that at the time they had really, really high hopes that it would be a real kind of regular annual thing. I'm not entirely sure. I know that they'd probably still like to keep trying to do it, but I had spoken with him. We had kind of overlapped a little bit. And he was telling me about, this thing that they were setting up called What I Do. That was this whole kind of like, maybe like, I don't know, like artist accelerator program. It was about kind of like connecting artists across disciplines to kind of foster collaboration.
Okay.
And it came out of this song that he did called What I Do, that he like wrote in the middle of the pandemic when he was really struggling with like, well, what does it even mean to be an artist or performer in a world where you can't go out really and perform and you're not connecting with people face to face. And I just thought that was also so cool. So, I knew that they had this thing coming up that was going to be this big like battle of the bands. And whoever won was going to get like a full music video budget, and they were going to get the kind of like full power of the whole kind of What I Do collective behind them. And so I sat down with Jay Masty, and I had recorded a sample show and I had submitted that. So like it was a go, but even all the way up to recording the whole conversation with him, editing the entire show, basically prepping the entire show for air, we didn't have a name. We didn't have a name for the show. We went through a whole bunch of other possibilities, and I had ones that I really liked and they weren't really working out. And so, seriously, it came down to the wire, and I was like, okay, guys, this What I Do Summer Showcase that I'm promoting throughout this entire episode is like this weekend. We have to decide on something, or I have to scrap this entire first episode, turn it into an article for Oklahoma City Free Press, and completely rethink the first episode.
Yeah.
And so they were just like, okay, cool. Went through a whole big list, and they were just like, cool, On the Scene. Okay. Which again was really kind of like a gun to your head decision that has ended up setting the entire tone, the entire branding of everything.
That's so cool.
You know?
Yeah.
And I'm still really proud of that one. My second episode was Sundeep.
Okay.
And
Sundeep.
that episode honestly gave me the entire show. That showed me immediately right out of the gate like what the show could be.
Yeah.
And I love him dearly. And just a couple of weeks ago had him back on the show actually to catch up. So,
before we started recording, just the amount of time that you're allotted, 5 minutes, 46 seconds.
Yep.
That's already sounds like minimal time, but then you're talking about the intro, the outro, sponsors, you're talking about maybe a little music, segment.
Yeah.
Like how much time do you have to like do the interview? For me, it's a struggle doing it for 1 hour.
Yeah.
So how do you do that?
The vast majority of 5-minute episodes of On the Scene are edited down from between an hour and 15 minutes and about 2.5 hours.
Jeez. Where do you even start?
Yeah, I have. I mean, and it's been a long process. I want to say that I just passed maybe 63 episodes, if I'm not mistaken, because it's ostensibly a weekly show.
Yeah.
But I do admittedly take a lot of weeks off. I try not to ever really take more than 1 week off at a time to really kind of keep them rolling. But it's a lot of work. So generally speaking, and I should actually say this for everybody that's not aware, On the Scene is Thursday evenings at 5:44 p.m. and then again Friday mornings at 6:45 and 8:45 a.m. on KGOU and wherever you get KGOU podcasts. So every new episode premieres on the air at 5:44 p.m. on Thursday. More often than not, 99% of the time, they get the episode from me at 3 a.m. Thursday morning.
No way. kind of closer a little bit. They don't ever like get nervous or like, no, they're like, oh, it's coming.
I've never given them any reason to.
Yeah.
I have never, and I have had a few weeks where like a day out,
Yeah.
maybe something falls through, something's just not going to be possible, and I'll let them know, and they're just always like, cool, that's no problem. They're the easiest and coolest people to work with that I've like ever worked with. They're so flexible. I had an episode that I was banging my head against the wall with audio issues, and ended up actually, I had to leave that edit to go to a KGOU event, and spoke to, my kind of direct connections there are Hard Luck Jim Johnson, blues man that's been with KGOU forever, and Dick Pryor, the station manager. And I told them, I'm so sorry. I'm having technical issues, audio issues. And they go, oh, don't worry about it. We'll run an encore episode. And I'm like, are you sure it's so? And they go, we had a presidential address that we were trying to carry live yesterday and had a whole bunch of technical problems and lost part of the address in the middle of it. They go, it's radio. You just roll with it. You roll with the punches, man.
Well, that's great that they're like that, because I mean, it takes a lot of trust, and obviously you've set that trust with them where they're like, he's going to deliver no matter what, and if he's not, he's going to give us a heads up. But I just think it's amazing that you crunch down an interview to that length, and it's still like meaningful, it's still impactful, and you still get to know that artist and what they're about. So
I really hope so. Yeah. It's taken a lot of tweaking and experimenting on my end to just figure out how to do that, like anything close to efficiently. And, staying up until 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning every single week is not necessarily efficient. I know, but a lot of the time now it's really gotten into like, I'll take the complete raw audio, put it through a transcriber so that I can basically just get everything in text. And then I can literally just scroll, and I can read faster than I can listen back to the episode. So I'll just scroll and find, the best comments, and admittedly, like I've had a bunch of guests that have listened to the show and then gone, oh, wow, you really connected a bunch of stuff that like I think I said this at the beginning and I said this 2 hours later. And I'm like, but everything can kind of be connected that way if it's kind of on topic. And then admittedly for a long time, for the first 30 or 40 episodes or something, I was speaking way, way, way too fast.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, you're probably in the back of your mind, you're like, I've only have like 5 minutes or whatever, right?
And it was really, my goal. And I think I hit this. I think maybe my first ever repeat guest was maybe like episode 49 or something. But my goal really was I wanted to have at least 50 straight episodes without a single repeat guest.
Okay.
I wanted to be able to prove, because I know easily without any question, but I wanted to be able to prove to everybody else listening that like, look, there are so many fantastic, creative, remarkable people that I don't even need to invite people back. I've always got somebody new to talk to. So that was my goal for those first 50 episodes. What that also meant was that not being able to bring anybody back meant for 50 solid episodes, I was really having to lay some groundwork and like explain background and talk about who people were. We got some comments of people going like, man, he really talks fast. I have a hard time keeping up.
I have to really pay attention here.
So that actually, if you can't tell, I'm an excitable guy. That really has been one of my big concerns, is slowing myself down. I'll say a line, I'll take a breath, say a line, I take a nice deep breath, and then I can just kind of go in and edit everything at my leisure. But yeah, editing it down to that has been really tough, and it's a lot of killing your darlings. It's every single episode I think I've ever done, I've had to trash some really, really beautiful and insightful comments from guests. You
got to get like the best of the best, right? Like,
and one of the biggest difficulties in that is, I only have that amount of time, not just to explain what someone is doing and not just to kind of showcase like what they've got coming up or, you know, what's cool about their creativity, but really, really attempting to also showcase their personality. You know, if I have a comedian on, and I've had a few, I'm trying to make sure that people understand that they're funny, right?
Yeah.
Or if somebody is a really emotional person or a really spiritual person or something, I'm always trying to make sure that people are getting an impression of the person. And that is so tough in 5 minutes.
Man,
So
that's crazy. So let's geek out about the setup and the behind the scenes. You told me you've never been to the actual station. When I listened to it, I thought that you were going to the station.
No.
So like, what's your setup like? Like, how do you invite guests? Like, kind of talk me through the behind the scenes of everything.
The majority of episodes, although it's maybe becoming less of the majority, really. But for the most part, if I meet someone in person, unless they have their own space, they have their own studio. Like I said, I've had Sandeep on a couple of times. Well, he's just got his own studio space. I just go hang out at his place.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I invite people up to the Soundbar. So, you know, again, Jay and Soundbar have been so, you know, they're also the sponsor of On the Scene. They've been so welcoming and so gracious and encouraging with it. I'm able to use that space when there's no business or anything going on. So I go up in there and again, people go in there and they're like, so where do you record? You like go into the little back room, you go into, I'm like, no, man, front room, big tables.
Really?
Yeah, I've got like a luggage. It's not like a suitcase necessarily, but like a piece of like luggage on wheels that I keep my entire mobile rig in, you know, little tiny 2-channel PreSonus interface, couple of really straightforward, you know, not like ultra cheap, but like just really straightforward, you know, bottom mid-tier condenser mics.
It sounds good. I mean, when I was listening to it, you're telling me a lot of the magic is, you know, condensing everything.
Just lots of condenser.
Yeah.
Lots of compression. And then, just, you know, again, everything that I do, I feel like feeds back into everything else that I do.
Yeah.
One of the reasons that KGOU was so willing to take a chance on me was because I've also got over 20 years worth of experience recording and mixing and editing my own music. So I already had all of that equipment. I already had all of those microphones and the interface and everything. And I already knew how to navigate the entire mixing process.
Yeah.
So that wasn't ever anything that I needed to learn, and it wasn't anything that they needed to provide, and it wasn't even anything I needed to buy equipment and write off on my taxes. I had it all already. So
That's amazing. Yeah, it sounds great. So congratulations on that.
oh well, so then I'll actually say one of the things that really surprises people is that I've started doing more and more and more episodes over Zoom.
Really?
And a lot of the episodes that you would have heard recently are Zoom because I was turned on to the fact that Zoom actually has a setting that you can go deep into the settings.
Yeah.
And you can select so that it records audio direct from both sources and then mixes them both down to your computer.
I see. So you're not having to deal with like lag or buffer.
No.
Or something.
So then at the end, I'm actually handed, like if they're all the way wherever they are and they're in their house or they're, you know, at the end of it, it mixes down and then hands me just a single audio track recorded directly from the room that they're in. So there's a bunch of episodes that have incredibly clean audio that sounds like we're sitting across from one another and like I've never met this person in real life.
But I guess you're dealing with musicians and artists who probably have their own microphone and audio interface and stuff. Because
sometimes you'd be surprised.
Sometimes it might be a struggle if you have somebody that's just like an artist and they just, you know, have AirPods or something. What would that sound like? You know?
I mean, I've actually had I've had the opposite happen kind of on both opposites. I've had really incredible musicians. I don't know if you know Ex Machina.
No.
Local dude. He makes this incredible glitchy lo-fi electronic music. His name is Armand. I mean, and he is a master and he produces and mixes everything himself. It's great. But I really wanted to have him on, and the only time that we could do it, he travels a lot for work. So he was in like Illinois or Iowa or I don't even remember exactly. Literally in a hotel room on hotel Wi-Fi, talking to me into a laptop. And that audio was not great. And I was really able to kind of massage it. And I feel like it still made a pretty good episode. And then I've talked to other people that have like absolutely no real concept of how to work or manipulate audio, but I've talked to them over Zoom, and they're on a strong connection and they've got a really nice computer or something. It sounds like I'm in the same room with them.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's perfect. So have you ever been tempted to say, we need to do on the scene extended or on the scene long form? Because I don't know, it's kind of cool that you're able to condense it, but like you said, there's probably a ton of stuff that you have in the bank where there's like great conversations that you're like, this should see the light of day, right?
Sometimes so asking for more time, 100,000%. Yes. When we finally got Soundbar on board as the official sponsor, then that means an underwriting spot at the beginning, that says support for On the Scene comes from the Soundbar. That originally was just taken out of my time. Yeah. And I have to tack that on at the beginning. And
you've got the intro music, like
yeah, and the intro, and it's nice. I can. There are some episodes where it's like you hear 3 notes of the intro music and then I'm starting. But yeah, when they set up the underwriting spot, that really started to squeeze me. Mm-hmm. And then there was maybe a couple episodes after that is when we started really getting comments of people saying, hey, this is a really interesting show, but this guy's talking too fast. Yeah. And so I really just kind of asked them and said, look, is there any way? And I mean, it used to be a hard out at 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. They gave me 5:25. And then that extra, so that's 5:25, the extra like 21 seconds that you talk about online, that's a little bit of extra, like other KGOU programming advertising at the end. Okay. So yeah, so the first however many episodes, I had a hard line at 5 minutes. They extend that to 5:25, and that's all I got.
Wow.
As far as the entire conversations, the truth is, I've had lots and lots of people try to convince me to just like release them as a podcast feed, because again, I also work for KGOU as an independent contractor. So I own, to the best of my knowledge, I own On the Scene, and I'm basically selling them On the Scene every week. Which means that if I wanted to put up the complete audio, I absolutely could. Mm-hmm. I really do believe that a lot of the time I'm able to take the conversations where I want them to go with people, because they know that if they take these detours into really serious places, or if there is, I don't know that I've ever talked to anybody about saying anything particularly controversial necessarily, but if the conversation goes in a way that really is connecting us and really is bonding us and getting us kind of on a deeper page with one another, that it's not necessarily going to see the light of day. Right. And so, and admittedly, that's just as much for me, right? Like when there's not cameras and stuff on me, my language is usually a lot worse and my demeanor can get a lot more passionate or a lot more fiery about a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
That just comes from the grizzled reporter side of me. So I mean, I've definitely thought about it, and we have a few times done some live On the Scene events, which has been really cool. And we kind of keep talking about how to expand those into, like having live events that also get recorded and also get edited for like an On the Scene special edition for a Sunday or something, where maybe it's like an hour-long episode that's edited down from a big live event,
Cool. How do you stay in tune with, artists? And because you even have like painters, authors, like we're not just talking musicians, you're talking about, a wide gamut of people. How do you stay in tune with like, who should be on the scene?
The simplest answer is social media, really. I unfortunately spend way too much of my time scrolling.
Same.
Yeah, we all do. But really, it's because every single creative person that you meet is going to lead you to other creative people. Mm. And so almost everyone that I talk to at the end of the conversation will have all kinds of suggestions for, oh man, you got to talk to this person. You got to talk to this person. This is like my favorite photographer that I work with if I'm a musician, or, they're a painter and you should talk to this person. I know that's an artist or that's an author. Creative people find one another, and creative people tend to flock together. With the exception a lot of the time of writers and authors, they tend to be really solitary. And that's actually why I think I've had fewer of those on the show and really, really want to have more. But they're a little bit harder to find.
I can see that.
Yeah.
For your birthday, you did something really special this year, right? I thought that was really cool. I saw the announcement. Congratulations. Tell me a little bit about what you did on your birthday.
So it was technically, we've been working on it for a long time. Obviously it's not something that you just do on a lark. So just the simple groundwork. I have been working for a long time for Oklahoma City Free Press. I had been freelancing for every single outlet and every single kind of news organization that would have me for a long time. And then I really just kind of landed at OKC Free Press, and came up through there just reporting on any and everything that they would let me and kind of honing my skills. And I think it was almost right about 6 months or so ago, went ahead and stepped up to the official position of arts and entertainment editor. And then actually very shortly after that, started talking more seriously about Brett Dickerson, the other Brett. We were always the Bretts everywhere that we go. He finally wanted to actually retire for real. And I say that because dude's already been retired.
Oh, really?
So Brett Dickerson is one of the busiest and most locked in and most energetic guys. He's got more energy than I've probably ever had in my life. And he's well into his 70s now. That's cool. So he actually retired as a public school teacher. Before that, he was a minister, I believe. Before that, he was like a city bus driver, I think, in Atlanta or something, and drove maybe like a cab or something. The guy's done everything. Yeah. But he actually started Oklahoma City Free Press in his retirement. So he was already retired, and he got into freelancing himself. And then really the story that he tells is when the Oklahoman announced that they were going to shut down the Metro desk, right? The explicit on the ground, hyper local city news of Oklahoma City. He said, all right, well, we need city news. We need Metro news in OKC. And he said, I'm just going to start it myself then. Started it literally from scratch. No investment, no debt, just bought a domain and went out and started writing and taught himself how to, run the website. That was 10 years ago this year. So for the 10th year, he finally handed it off. He's finally ready to probably move out of state. He's got grandchildren out of state, and he wants to spend time with his grandchildren. Yeah. And has earned the right to. So
that's cool.
So we started talking about it, and he said, hey, is this really something you would want to do? And I said, want to? Yes, 100%. Know how to? Don't even know where to start.
Right.
And he said, we'll start working on it. So, behind the scenes for a very long time had been a lot of gradual handoff. But we were working it out and making sure. He and I have always worked so fantastically well together. And then finally we always have a big kind of like year end / holiday, like staff dinner with all of our freelancers. And that was in December, and we told all the freelancers then, and then went through it for a while, and then signed the papers just a couple of weeks ago for me to buy and take over Oklahoma City Free Press as the leader and the owner and the editor-in-chief.
Wow. So now we're adding entrepreneur. I mean, it's official. You're an entrepreneur, right?
Yes, that is official. And yes, that is absolutely right. It still doesn't feel like that to me. It's going to be a really long time before I feel like this is not Brett Dickerson's company, right? But the truth is that doesn't bother me by any means, because I feel like he created something and built something entirely from scratch that is so important, in my opinion, so important to the city, so important to me. And then to his credit, just so well run and so well handled that I kind of feel like I'm just picking it up from him. Right. And yeah, I don't really have any immediate ambition to do anything differently. Knowing myself, that will change over time. But yeah, right now it's hard for me to think of myself as an entrepreneur or something, you know?
But, you know, going back to your comment about it being so important, you know, it's even crazy that I have to say this now, but I think the moment that we're living in right now with the censorship, and you see all these traditional newspapers, Washington Post, New York Times, laying off people, censoring certain articles and stuff, like independent media right now is super important.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely why, that's why I said yes so quickly. And admittedly, it's also why Dickerson wanted to make sure that it was going to go, you know, to the right person. And also why he wouldn't just kind of like wind it down and say, well, hey, this has been a fun 10 years and we've done some really good work, but it's time for me to move on, and everybody else could kind of spread out and kind of do their own thing. You know, we live in a kind of news ecosystem right now that is not uncharted. I think some people feel like, oh, we're in completely uncharted waters. We're not really. You actually even mentioned the Washington Post. I listened to a long form podcast earlier this week with, I'm not going to be able to remember his name, but he was longtime Washington Post back in the late 80s and late 90s and early 2000s. And then he left the Washington Post to create Politico. He had a really great insight into the fact that the modern news ecosystem is almost identical actually to the maybe like the second half of the 1800s.
Really?
How so? There was, back then there was really no such thing as like, you know, straightforward, objective, quote unquote, unbiased news. News was basically just given to news organizations by the government.
Like run it, right?
Yeah. The government basically, like they would issue statements, they would issue releases, they would tell you what was going on, and then the newspapers would basically write that. And so because of that, you ended up with hyper partisan, hyper biased, fully subjective, emotional, passionate news, quote unquote news, because the most important relationship that you could possibly foster was with the politicians themselves.
Interesting.
What he actually goes into in that, this was an episode of Plain English for anybody that's curious. What he actually goes into then is that around maybe like the real late 1800s, the early 1900s or so, or maybe even a little bit later than that, the like department stores, when the big department stores and the big kind of retailers started wanting to get in on advertising because they realized that everybody was picking up the newspaper. So that's the best place to put our advertisements. They all of a sudden started, really pushing for less animosity. Okay. They wanted less toxicity. They wanted much more. And so what you ended up with is, what a lot of people even called it was boring news. It was really just kind of boring, dispassionate,
just kind of
news.
Middle ground.
Yeah.
Not ruffling any feathers.
Yeah. Now, granted, that ended up creating all of its own issues.
Yeah.
But, that's how we eventually developed into really, by the time that you get to, you know, obviously the late 60s and 70s. I mean, by the time that you get to Watergate, American journalism had become something deeply important, something that could really move the needle in a way that if you went back 100 years, you would never, ever think, because everything was basically just had decided on a party, had decided on a side. Every single news outlet had an agenda. And that's right back where we are now.
That's true. Yeah.
So,
I guess maybe to me, it just feels like it's more prevalent, just I guess based on social media, because you see how the story is portrayed online or on the paper or whatever. But then you see like the raw social media, the videos, and you're like, well, wait a minute. Like I read this, you said it happened like this, but then I see it online and I see it with my own eyes. It really happened this other way, right? So
yeah. And I mean, that is what we're kind of all contending with right now. That's a huge part of the importance of independent news. And generally speaking, independent news is kind of a big blanket term that I think more correctly would be called non-corporate news, right? Because so much of the independent news landscape is entirely propped up on nonprofits. And we've got a lot of those here in Oklahoma that are doing just unbelievable work, right? We've got Oklahoma Watch, Oklahoma Voice, The Frontier, and NonDoc. Those are all nonprofit newsrooms. Now, they're not beholden to any, particular corporate entity. They don't have to worry about media mergers and the FCC and all this other stuff. Mm-hmm. But, nonprofit news, nonprofit literally anything requires a board. And, that board might have an opinion. I would never imply that the nonprofit newsrooms here, and I love the nonprofit newsrooms to death. They are godsends. They tend to operate on Creative Commons license that allows Oklahoma City Free Press to republish their work. Mm-hmm. And especially right now, there's a guy named Ben Fenwick that's writing a lot for Oklahoma Watch that's doing some of the absolute best work in the state. The nonprofits do have boards, and I think that the people that are on those boards are very, very thoughtful and very careful people, but that's still just that many more kind of minds that things have to go through. Right. And a lot of people, because of the popularity of nonprofit news, a lot of people are kind of under the impression that Oklahoma City Free Press is, and we're not. We are ad sponsored news.
Okay.
And that doesn't mean sponsored content. We never, ever, ever allowed sponsored content and never will. But what that means is we work with advertisers that we believe in. We work with advertisers that stay completely and totally hands off about our coverage. Mm-hmm. And like I even said in my announcement about taking over the company, I am now the only owner, and the only thing that we have to answer to is the facts and the community. That's what I said. And that does make things, it makes things harder a lot of the time, but it makes things easier in terms of, if I know that something is objective, if I know that something is factual, I can report it. I don't have to clear it with anybody. That just puts a lot more pressure on me, really, to make sure that I am getting it right, to make sure that I'm not, pissing off the wrong people. But it's obviously more important than ever.
Yeah.
And especially when people have just lost faith in news.
That's the other thing.
so much, because so much of it does feel partisan, or so much of it does feel bought or controlled by corporate sponsors, media owners, all this kind of stuff. But also because people have really gotten to a point where they've convinced themselves that what you see on social media, especially if it is at odds with the news, then that must be the truth. And that's actually one of the biggest things that I've really found myself focusing on, is trying to confirm or corroborate or clarify a lot of the stuff that people are claiming on social media, and realizing that, hey, the stuff that's going around as quickly as it's moving is, a lot of the time, it's not what you think.
Right.
And we've been seeing a lot of that lately. We've been seeing a lot of that with, some local government and police actions that have been happening around Oklahoma City. A lot of the conclusions that people are jumping to, I'm not going to say that they're absolutely wrong, but a lot of the time they are definitely not confirmed. Mm-hmm. And so that's a lot of what I'm contending with.
Yeah. You know what I've been surprised with is the amount of people that on a daily basis fall for something that's AI. And I don't know if they know about it or not, but they paint the picture like this is what happened.
Yeah.
And you can clearly tell that the video is AI, which is going to become a bigger problem as AI continues to get better. But
it's getting better and better. I mean, and it's already getting so good to the fact that, I mean, I saw a video a few weeks ago that was very much the opposite. I was convinced it was AI, and it ended up not being. It ended up.
I haven't had that happen to me. Yeah.
Because I deeply hate and despise AI. I don't mind saying.
Yeah.
I have no love for it or anything, and I do feel like it's watering a lot of things down. Watering them down, ironically, maybe because of how much water it's taking.
Pun intended.
Yeah, exactly. But I definitely live every day with that, with trying to say, okay, you know, is this video that's going around, is that AI? Is it real? Was it a real video that's just been very subtly manipulated in some way? Because we can do that really easily now. But moreover than that, so much. I mean, beyond what people realize, the vast majority of discourse now is happening in social media threads or comment sections or something. And I genuinely don't think that people are fully aware of just how many of the comments and posts that you read online were never even touched by human hands or a human brain.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Or if they were, they're in a troll farm in Russia somewhere.
That's true too. Yeah, man, it's a struggle. So definitely the landscape is just going to get tougher and tougher. Yeah. But just, you know, short amount of time you've been leading the OKC Free Press. What's been the greatest lesson learned, you know, from a entrepreneur perspective, business, like what's been the biggest lesson there?
Literally anything that I can say to that question would make Dickerson laugh, and he'd be like, yeah, I told you. The biggest thing probably is trying to be honest with myself about what we have the time and resources and ability to cover, right? Again, I mentioned the nonprofit newsrooms. Even beyond the nonprofits, even the Oklahoman, even all of the TV stations, right? I feel genuinely happy that they all exist. And I know how much we need them. And I know a lot of these people. I overlap with a lot of these. I was at an event today that all the TV stations in the Oklahoman were all there. And I'm so happy to know that they exist and to know that they are taking the time to be a part of the community, because it reassures me that when there's something that I just do not have the resources to cover, it's likely still going to get covered one way or another, you know? And then there are things, admittedly, entirely on the other end of that, where maybe they're so small and maybe they're so kind of hyper local that the TV stations don't really think that anybody cares and they're not going to waste resources on that. Well, that's my job. My job is the hyper local stuff that is on the ground here in the city. You know, last week I covered Embark, right? Oklahoma City's public transit authority.
Yeah.
Wasn't even a big celebration. They just had a small little celebration with some of their officials to celebrate 2 years of the BRT, the bus rapid transit system, and then simultaneously 1 million riders on the BRT. And it was tiny and it was very sparsely attended. And I went out there and had a great time chatting with them, because that is what Oklahoma City Free Press is for, is to say, hey, look, here's the thing that is, you know, currently it's not even hyper local just to the city. It's hyper local to literally like the Northwest and downtown loop that it runs on.
Hopefully it'll grow over time.
Hopefully, because it's great. It's a genuinely great service.
Yeah.
But to be able to say, you know, hey, this isn't just something that's in your community. This is something that your taxes are paying for. This is how your money and your resources and your city are being run and being handled. That is what something like OKC Free Press is for. And so I was so happy to tell that story.
Yeah.
But then the other things that have been immediately daunting. And I used to pitch stuff to Dickerson all day long. And he would say, look, you're on the right track. You're definitely on a great direction, but it's beyond our resources. All of a sudden I'm looking at our resources now and going, oh yeah, no, he wasn't lying.
but now you can kind of like make those decisions and decide what you want to tackle.
I can. And obviously,
cool.
I mean, that's definitely a big part of my very first push out of the gate is to, just at least try to increase slightly our advertising partners, sponsorships, launching new columns about cool new stuff. Right now we have a weekly film column and a weekly music column that I write, but I'm hoping to bring on some new columnists to do other stuff that's kind of, cool, locally oriented stuff. Hopefully what that leads to is more resources. And when you're talking about independent news, resources generally are reporters. And there are a lot of awesome reporters around here. Like I say, basically everybody's freelance. So yeah. But there's also loads of very hungry and very thoughtful and very intelligent people that actually don't have experience reporting yet. And a publication like ours that's, we're small and we're scrappy and we're totally independent. Well, that also means that we are primed to, really kind of bring on new people and really kind of teach them from the ground up and grow new reporters.
I feel like our conversation just flew by. We're running out of time, but I guess probably the last question I would have for you, it seems like you've meshed a lot of the things that you love together and turned them into what you do for a living.
Yeah.
Would you recommend that? A, and secondly, how do you create that into an actual business that pays the bills? Right. Twofold question there for you.
Staying open to opportunities is definitely how you turn it into something. Staying open to opportunities and really trying to connect. Right. So, like I said, and actually kind of bringing it way back to earlier in the conversation, when I really made a conscious decision to start going out and being a part of the community, talking to people, meeting people one-on-one and engaging, not just meeting people, but following up and engaging and turning people into friends. That is what leads to opportunities, and then all of a sudden I get something like Jay from the sound bar says, hey, you ever thought about having a radio show? Or, I literally just went to like a journalism meetup at Ponyboy years ago.
Okay.
And Brett Dickerson was leaving and introduced himself to me. And I said, hey, I'm Brett Fieldcamp. And he said, I know you. I read all your work.
That's awesome.
And that's how we met. Right.
Okay.
So it's just kind of on the strength of it. Now, whether or not it's a great idea to turn all of your interests into your work, it's up for debate. I will say that. The biggest thing I can say is that if it is important work and it's important to you, then yes, because I have never done anything in my entire life that is even remotely as difficult as reporting and journalism, and especially now running and owning this outlet. But no matter how little sleep I get, and no matter how stressed I get about it, and no matter how much I want to pull my hair out a lot of the time, the end result is always something that I'm proud of. The journey to get there sometimes can be horrible, but man, the end result is always going to be something that I'm proud of. Even if it's a story like Million Riders on the BRT, that's a story I'm really proud to have told. The other thing that I can say is that I have not turned everything that I love into work.
Okay.
I also love to cook. It's one of my favorite things in the world. And that's actually what I do to wind down, is I just watch cooking videos like all night long. And people say, really, do you want to be a chef? Do you want to own a restaurant? And I say, nope, because I want to have something that I love.
That's a great idea. Very cool. Well, one of the questions I always ask the guest, if I pull up your playlist, who's going to be on that playlist? So I'm going to put you on the spot. Anything cool that you want to put the viewers on to? Anything that maybe is like a go-to? You tell me what's on that playlist.
Like music playlist?
Yeah.
Obviously Sigaros. That's always going to be my favorite. They're my favorite band in the world. British artist named Ben Howard. That has absolutely become one of my biggest inspirations for songwriting and also for his approach to guitar. It's all over the place and wild and creative. I'm always going to be a giant lifelong fan of Funkadelic, original late 60s, early 70s Funkadelic with Eddie Hazel on guitar. Man, lots and lots and lots of jazz. There's my number one most played artist, I think, for the last 2 years running is a European jazz trio called the Nikolai Madgeland Trio.
Okay.
It has a song called Welcome, simple piano trio. It's just perfect. And then Brian Eno.
Perfect.
Ambient from Brian Eno.
Okay. Very cool. So for the viewers out there, plug in your social, plug everything you got. What's the best place for them to find everything that you're doing?
Best place for them to find a good kind of overview of what I do is my Instagram at Brett Fieldcamp OKC. I'm also at Meteorology Music on Instagram, and that's where I put all the stuff that, it shouldn't be related to my professional account. But then also very, very clearly check out On the Scene on KGOU. It's kgou.org. Or there's also a podcast feed on any podcast platform, really. And then most importantly, for absolutely anybody in the city and really in the state, because we do look all around the state of Oklahoma, freepressokc.com and at freepressokc on basically every single platform. And we can always be reached there as well. You can reach me through really any one of those, and I will check every one of them about 50 times a day.
All right. Perfect. I want to thank you for your time. I don't know if we could have done this in 5 minutes, 46 seconds, but
I would have figured it out, buddy.
There you have it. Ladies and gentlemen, the super talented Brett Fieldcamp on the Maverick Podcast. In dreams, we trust.